The message was 6 words. I'm the maid. He won't let me leave. She sent it at 11:58 p.m. She had been trying to reach her cousin Adeze, the one person in Seoul who knew she was alive, who had the address of the estate, who had promised to come if Zara ever sent those exact words. The emergency code they had agreed on 3 months ago over a bowl of pepper soup in a cramped Itaewon kitchen, when Adeze had said, "If anything ever feels wrong, just send those words and I will come." Zara Obi had waited as long as she could. She had waited through 6 weeks of locked gates and confiscated phones, and a madam who smiled in photographs and screamed in hallways. She had waited through 3 requests to leave that were answered with paper documents she could not read, and a lawyer's name she was never given. She had waited through the night her passport disappeared from her room and reappeared 3 days later in a locked drawer she was not permitted to open. She had waited until she was out of waiting. She pressed send. She pressed it fast, the way you press things when your hands were not entirely steady. Then she looked at the screen, and the contact at the top of the thread was not labeled Adeze. It was labeled KSH, Construction Inquiry. A business contact, a number she had no memory of saving, something left over from the first week when Madam had given her a phone and a list of vendors and told her to manage the estate's supply orders. She had saved every number from the list. She had never called most of them. She had forgotten to delete any of them. She had just sent her emergency code to a stranger. Her phone buzzed. The stranger had replied, "Who is stopping you?" 4 words, no punctuation. No, "Who is this?" or "Wrong number," or the polite confusion of someone who had received the message they did not understand. Just the question, direct, present, already inside the situation, pulling toward the center of it. Zara stared at her phone in the dark of the small staff room on the 3rd floor of the Han estate, with its one window overlooking the delivery gate, and its single bed she had made every morning for 6 weeks, and the door she had not locked because she had no key, and she thought, "This is either the worst mistake I have made since arriving in Seoul, or it is the only thing left." She typed back, "His name is Han Seok-jin. I am his maid. He took my passport. I cannot leave." 12 seconds of silence. Then, address. "Welcome to this channel. And honey, if you think a wrong number is just a mistake, this story is going to teach you that some mistakes are the only thing standing between a woman and her way out." Hit that like button if you're already holding your breath. Subscribe because I promise you, by the time we reach the end of tonight, you will understand something about power that you didn't understand at the beginning. Let's go back to where this really started. Zara Obi had not come to Seoul to be a maid. She had come to be a nurse. That was the plan, the 5-year plan she had built with the careful, incremental precision of a woman who had grown up watching her mother plan her way out of everything that tried to hold her down. Nursing certification in Nigeria, 2 years of hospital work, enough savings for a language course and a working visa. Then Seoul, where the healthcare sector was expanding, where Nigerian nurses with international certification were being recruited actively, where her cousin Adaeze had already settled and was sending back reports that the city was hard but real, and if you were willing to work, you could build something. Zara was willing to work. She had always been willing to work. From the age of 14, when her mother's illness began eating into the household money and Zara had added evening tutoring to school and church and cooking, she had understood that willingness was the one resource that could not be taken from you. She had arrived in Seoul on a Tuesday in February with 1 suitcase, a nursing certification, a TOPIK Level 3 Korean qualification she had studied for on her phone for 11 months, and 700,000 won in an account she had opened online before landing. She stayed with Adeze for 3 weeks. She had gone to every interview Adeze had helped her find. She had been polite and prepared and early to every single one. She had not been hired. Not because she was unqualified. She was more than qualified. She had been told this in several of the interviews, in the careful, almost apologetic language of people who were delivering a verdict they could not quite name directly. "We are looking for someone with more local experience. The position has been filled internally. We will keep your application on file." One hospital coordinator, a woman in her 50s who had looked at Zara's certification and then looked at Zara and then looked back at the certification, had said something different. Something that Zara had written down that evening in the small notebook she kept, not because she planned to use it, but because some things needed to be witnessed somewhere, even if only by the person they happened to. You are very capable, but our patients are sometimes uncomfortable with a pause. Someone unfamiliar. Zara had thanked her and left. She had sat on the subway platform for 40 minutes without taking a train. Then she had gone back to Adaizi's and made dinner and updated her resume and sent 12 more applications. By the end of the third week, she had 23 rejections and 400,000 won remaining, and the conversation with Adaize that began with, "I am going to be fine," and ended with both of them crying over instant noodles at 1 in the morning. It was Adaize who found the listing. Live-in domestic position, prestigious Hannam-dong estate, competitive compensation, language requirements, English and intermediate Korean, nursing background preferred. Compensation figure, 3 million won per month. More than 4 times what the hospital jobs were offering.
Let us know in the comments where in the world you are watching this video from. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and stay with us. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss our next video.
Just for 1 year, Adaize had said, save the money, reapply next spring. You will have local work history. You will have references. You will have enough to wait longer. Zara had read the listing 4 times. She had told herself the nursing background preferred line meant they needed someone who understood medication schedules, who could support an elderly or recovering household member, who was not just a cleaner but a caregiver. This felt like a reasonable interpretation. She had been hired over the phone. She had never met Han Seok-jin before arriving at his estate with her suitcase on a Sunday morning in March. He was 44 years old, second son of Han Construction Group's founding family, divorced, no children. A collection of abstract paintings in rooms that were cleaned every day whether or not anyone entered them. A car he never drove himself. A smile he deployed with the practiced precision of a man who had learned that warmth was a tool and had practiced using it until it looked natural. He had shaken her hand at the door and said her name correctly, Zara, and shown her to a staff room that was small but clean, and told her the schedule was straightforward and the compensation would be delivered weekly and that he hoped she found the work suitable. Zara had thought, this is manageable. She had been wrong. Not immediately. The first 2 weeks were fine, or fine enough. The work was what it was. Cooking, cleaning, managing vendor calls, keeping the house running. She was good at it. She was good at most things she decided to be good at. Seok-jin ate the meals she prepared without comment, which she learned over time meant approval, because the one morning she accidentally overcooked the rice, he had looked at the bowl with an expression she did not like and said nothing, and the nothing had lasted all day and sat in the air of the house like weather. The first sign she missed because she did not know it was a sign. He mentioned in the 3rd week that the staff entrance was to be used for all arrivals and departures, not the main gate. For security, he said, the estate requires controlled access. She used the staff entrance. Of course she did. She was staff. The second sign she noticed but explained away. Her phone, the personal phone she had come with, the one with Adaisa's number and her mother's number and all the messages from home, had a signal problem on the 3rd floor. Or she thought it did. The calls kept dropping. She switched to the estate phone for her supply orders and told herself she would go out on her day off and find a signal somewhere and call her mother. Her day off was Sunday. On the first Sunday, Seok-jin had a catering emergency and needed her to manage it. On the second Sunday, his car was being detailed and he needed her to wait for the service company. On the third Sunday, she did not ask for the day off because she had begun to understand without anyone saying it directly that asking for the day off was a thing she could technically do and also a thing that would cost her something she could not afford to spend. The third sign was the passport. She had kept it in her room, in the interior pocket of her suitcase where she kept all documents. On a Thursday evening in the 5th week, she opened the pocket and it was not there. She told herself she had moved it. She searched the room. She told herself she had misplaced it. She searched again. She did not ask Seok-jin directly. She had learned by then that direct questions produced a particular quality of silence from him that was worse than an answer. She asked the housekeeper, a woman named Mrs. Choi, who had worked at the estate for 9 years and communicated primarily through a system of small, controlled expressions that Zara was still learning to read. Mrs. Choi looked at her and said, "Mr. Han keeps important documents in the estate safe for security." Zara said, "It is my passport." Mrs. Choi said, "Yes." Zara understood then that she was not going to get her passport from asking Mrs. Choi. She requested a meeting with Seok-jin. He was busy. She requested again. He was traveling. She left a note. The note was returned to her room without a response, folded differently than she had folded it, which told her it had been read. In week 6, she sent the text. Kang Soo-hyun was in the middle of a site inspection when his phone buzzed. He did not check it immediately. He was 41 floors above Mapogu on the skeleton of a mixed-use development his company had been building for 11 months, and the structural engineer beside him was explaining a load-bearing discrepancy in the east wing that required his full attention. And Kang Soo-hyun's full attention, when given, was the kind that did not subdivide easily. He finished the conversation. He signed the inspection form. He took the elevator down to the ground level, walked to his car, and sat in the back seat while his driver pulled into traffic. Then he checked his phone. Unknown message thread. No contact name. The number was in his saved contacts under a listing he had created 8 months ago when his company had submitted a bid for estate maintenance on a Hanam-dong property. The bid had not been accepted. He had never deleted the number. "I'm the maid. He won't let me leave." He read it twice. His driver glanced in the rearview mirror. Soo-hyun's expression had not changed. It never changed in ways that were visible to people who did not know how to read him. But something behind his eyes had sharpened into a particular focus that his second-in-command, Park Tae, would have recognized immediately, because it was a focus Soo-hyun brought to problems that were going to require him to make decisions other men would spend 3 days deliberating. He typed, "Who is stopping you?" The response came quickly. "His name is Han Seok-jin. I am his maid. I cannot leave." He sat with those words for a moment. Han Seok-jin, second son, the family that had outbid him on 4 consecutive government contracts, using methods that Soo-hyun had never been able to prove were improper, but had never believed were entirely clean. A man who existed at the intersection of old money and newer ambitions, and the particular confidence of someone who had grown up understanding that enough capital makes enough problems disappear. Soo-hyun was not an idealistic man. He had not built what he had built by operating in the territory of the ideal. The Kang Group, officially a construction and real estate conglomerate, unofficially something considerably more textured, had been built by a man who understood the actual architecture of the world, where the load-bearing walls were and where the decorative ones were, and which could be removed without consequence, and which, if touched, would bring down everything above them. He did not do what he did because he was good. He did what he did because he was deliberate. And deliberate, over 17 years, had produced a man who understood, more precisely than most, what it looked like when power was being used to make someone disappear. He had seen it from the inside of the machine that did the disappearing. He had seen it from the outside once, in a way that had not left him. He did not think about that now. He thought about the 6 words on his screen and the woman who had sent them, and the wrong number that was the only thread currently connecting her to the world outside a locked gate. He typed, "Address." 12 seconds. Then she sent it. He leaned forward. Taya, his driver, who was also, as most people in Soo-hyun's immediate circle were, something more than his official title, glanced in the mirror. "Hanam-dong," Soo-hyun said, and gave the address. "Make the calls." Taeyu nodded and reached for his own phone, and the car changed direction. Soo-hyun looked at the message thread again. He typed, "Stay in your room. Do not send any more messages from this phone tonight. I will be there in 40 minutes. He paused, then added, "I know the estate. I know the gate. You do not need to do anything."
He set the phone face down on the seat and looked out the window at Seoul, moving past in its nighttime configuration, and felt the particular quality of certainty that came to him when a situation had clarified itself into something actionable. He did not examine it further than that. Examination was for afterward. Zara sat on the edge of her bed and did not move. The phone was on the pillow. The screen was dark. The stranger had told her not to send any more messages from this phone tonight, and she did not, and the silence of the estate at midnight settled around her with its particular weight. The specific silence of a large house where most of the sounds were architecture and the human ones were carefully managed. She had made a plan. The plan was, if no one came by 1 a.m., she would go to the kitchen, find the landline Mrs. Choi used for grocery orders, and call Ada. It was not a good plan. She knew it was not a good plan, but it was a plan. And having a plan was the thing she had found, across a life that had required more plans than most, kept her functional when everything else was trying not to be. She had been sitting for 20 minutes when she heard the gate. Not a crash, not a confrontation. The gate opened. The electronic lock disengaged with its usual clean click. The sound it made every morning when the delivery trucks arrived. The sound that meant authorized entry, which was not possible at midnight unless someone had the code.
Let us know in the comments where in the world you are watching this video from. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and stay with us. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss our next video.
She heard footsteps on the stone path, then the main entrance, then voices, one briefly, and then quiet again. Then a knock on her door, 3 times, a pause, 2 times. She had not told anyone a code. She opened the door. The man in the hallway was not what she had assembled from his messages. She had built something approximate, a placeholder, the way you built images of people from the texture of their words. She had not built this. A man in his early 40s in a dark jacket, no urgency in his posture, the particular stillness of someone who had arrived exactly where he intended and had time to be exactly where he was. Sharp features, dark eyes that found hers immediately and assessed without performance. He looked at her the way she had wished for 6 weeks that someone would look at her, not through her, not past her, at her. As a fact, as a person whose presence in a situation required a response. Zara Obi, he said. His pronunciation was careful and correct. Yes, she said. I am Kang Soo-hyun. He did not explain further, did not list credentials or affiliations, or the architecture of why he was standing in her hallway at midnight. He just said his name, the way people said their names when they expected the name to be enough. And then, your passport is in the estate safe. The safe is in Han Seok-jin's study on the 2nd floor. Can you show me where the study is? She stared at him. You said he won't let you leave, Soo-hyun said. Not an accusation, not a prompt, a repetition of the facts she had given him, treated as information that required action. That ends tonight. Can you show me the study? He is in the house, Zara said. I know. He won't, Soo-hyun said. His voice was still entirely level. Calm in the way that things were calm when the person being calm had already decided the outcome and was not negotiating with that decision. He knows I am here. He is in his bedroom. He will stay there. She did not ask how he knew. She was already moving. The study was on the 2nd floor, east wing, 3rd door from the stairs. Zara had cleaned it every morning for 6 weeks. She had dusted the desk and the shelves and the glass cabinet in the corner that held Seok-jin's collection of antique inkstones. She had never opened the cabinet on the far wall that she had understood instinctively was not for her to open. The far cabinet had the safe behind it. Soo-hyun looked at the cabinet for a moment. He did not produce a tool or a device. He made a call, low Korean, 4 sentences. Someone replied. He listened. He went to the cabinet, pressed a sequence on the combination panel that Zara had not known existed, and the door opened. She did not ask. Later, she would not ask. Some mechanisms were cleaner when the how of them remained unspoken. The safe door came open with the kind of assistance that did not require drama. And inside were 3 passports. Zara's Nigerian passport,
a South African document she did not recognize, and a Philippine travel document with a woman's photo she had never seen. Below them, 3 employment contracts in different languages. Below those, a stack of wire transfer records. Zara took her passport. Her hand was steady. She had decided at some point in the last 40 minutes that her hands were going to be steady, and so they were. Soo-hyun photographed everything else, every page. Methodical, unhurried, the way someone photographed evidence when they knew they would need it to be complete. "There are other women," Zara said. "Yes." "The other passports?" "Yes." He did not look up from the photographs. "They will be handled." "I want to know how." He paused, looked at her. The assessment again. The one that treated her as a fact requiring consideration. "Tomorrow," he said. "I will explain everything tomorrow. Tonight, I am taking you out of this house." "And those women?" "2 of them left this estate 6 months ago. The South African passport belongs to a woman who has been home for 4 months. She did not know her passport was still here." He closed the safe. "The Philippine passport belongs to a woman currently employed at a property in Busan. She will be contacted tomorrow." He looked at Zara directly. "I will show you the records if you need to verify this, but right now we need to leave." She stood in the study of a man who had taken her passport and her phone signal and her Sundays for 6 weeks, holding her own document in her own hands, and looked at this stranger who had arrived at midnight because she had sent a wrong number text and had not asked her to explain or apologize or be grateful, had simply come and done what needed doing and told her the truth when she asked for it. She said, "Let's go." She found out his name from the hotel business card on the bedside table. Not his name, she had that. The name of what he was. The card was from the Kang Group, and beneath the logo was a line of text: Infrastructure, Development, Private Security Solutions. She sat in the hotel room the company had provided. Now where she was staying, she understood, permanently, a transition point, a breath between one situation and the next, and looked at the card, and then looked at the ceiling, and then looked at the card again. Private Security Solutions. She understood now why the gate code had not been a problem. Soo-hyun arrived at 8 in the morning with coffee and a folder of documents she had not asked for, but had known somewhere in the hours of not quite sleep were going to exist. He set the coffee on the table, black, which she did not know he knew she took, and sat across from her without asking permission. "Han Seok-jin," he said, opening the folder, "has had 3 domestic employees in the last 2 years. 2 of them left under similar circumstances to yours. Passports missing during their employment, documents that prevented them from easily filing complaints. Both of them are back in their home countries. Neither filed formally." He paused. "The third is the woman in Busan." "He does this with other women too," Zara said. "He does it with women who come here for work, women from outside Korea who do not know the system, who may not have immediate family here, who might find it difficult to complain without documentation." Soo-hyun's voice was flat, the way voices were flat when the speaker had made peace with what they were describing and was concentrating on the accuracy of the description. "He is not unique. He is one of several men in this city who operate this way." "And what happens to men like him?" He looked at her. "It depends on who finds out." "You found out." "You told me." He held her gaze. "You sent a message to the wrong number and I was on the other end of it." A pause. "I am not going to pretend I came tonight purely out of altruism. Han Seok-jin has been a professional problem for my company for 4 years. The documents in that safe will create legal problems for him that have nothing to do with you. But," he stopped. "But," Zara said, "but I also would have come if he had been no one to me. I want to be clear about that." She looked at him across the hotel table with her coffee going warm between her hands and felt the particular complicated thing that happened when a person said the true thing about themselves without decoration. "Why?" she asked. He was quiet for a moment, not avoiding, processing. The difference was visible in him now that she was learning to read it. "I have seen this before," he said. "Not exactly this, but close enough." Another pause. "Someone I knew. A long time ago. She did not send a message and no one came. And by the time anyone found out, the damage was permanent." He did not say more. He did not need to. "I am sorry," Zara said. "So am I," he said. "Every day." The folder was still open between them. Zara looked at the documents, the wire transfers, the other employment contracts, the careful, deliberate architecture of a man who had built a system for making women invisible and had been using it for years behind the walls of a house that cost more per month than most people earned in a year. "What happens now?" she asked. "That," he said, "depends on what you want." She wanted her passport in her own hands for the rest of her life. She had that. She wanted Araesa to know she was safe. She called her within the hour. Araesa arrived at the hotel 40 minutes later and held her for 3 minutes without saying anything, which was unlike Araesa, who said things, and which told Zara everything she needed to know about how afraid Araesa had been.
She wanted the woman in Busan to have her passport. Soo-hyun's people handled that by the following morning. She wanted Han Seok-jin to face something real. This took longer, not because Soo-hyun was unwilling. The documents from the safe had been passed to 3 places simultaneously: the National Human Rights Commission, the Immigration Authority, and a journalist Soo-hyun declined to name directly, but described as someone who had been building a story on labor exploitation in private domestic employment for 14 months and now had what she needed to publish it. The story ran 6 weeks later. Han Seok-jin's name was in the 3rd paragraph. The wire transfer records were in the 4th. The 3 other women were not named, but their situations were described in the careful, documented language of someone who had verified every detail. The story was shared 11,000 times in the first day. Seok-jin's family issued a statement. The statement described the allegations as fabricated. The statement did not address the wire transfers. The statement was widely noted for not addressing the wire transfers. Zara did not read the comments. She had learned, across 6 weeks of a certain kind of powerlessness, that some things were better felt from a distance. She was, by that point, no longer at the hotel. She had moved into a small apartment in Mapogu. Not luxurious, not grand, but hers. Her name on the lease, her schedule on the wall, her mother's voice on the phone every Sunday morning at 8. She had re-enrolled in the nursing certification program, using funds that had come from a source she had questioned Soo-hyun about directly. He had told her the truth about the source: a professional settlement, his company's legal team, the result of 4 years of accumulated documentation about the Han Group's contract practices. "This is not your payment for anything," he had said. "It is what was already owed to you by the systems that failed to protect you." She had looked at him for a long time. "I want you to know," she said, "that I did not come to Seoul to be rescued. I know that. I came to be a nurse. I am going to be a nurse. I know that too."
Let us know in the comments where in the world you are watching this video from. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and stay with us. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss our next video.
She took the money, not because she had no choice. She had learned by then that she always had a choice, even when the choices were difficult, but because the alternative was pride performing as principal, and she had no patience left for that performance. What she had was clearer now. What she had was a language she was getting better at, a certification she was returning to, a cousin on Sundays, a mother on the phone, an apartment that smelled like the rosemary plant she had bought at the Mangwon market on her first free Saturday, and once a week, a coffee. It started because he kept checking. Not intrusively, not the checking of a man who needed to confirm that something was still in place, the checking of a man who had formed a habit he was not pretending not to have. A message on Tuesday afternoons, a question about the nursing program. Occasionally, when she said she was going somewhere new in the city, a note about a specific restaurant or a neighborhood she might find interesting that always landed with the precision of someone who had thought about what she might enjoy rather than what he might suggest. She started checking back. It took her 3 months to trust it and another month to name it, and by the time she named it, she had already known for weeks that it was real. He was not an easy man.
She had understood this early and did not pretend otherwise. He existed in a world that operated in shades she was still learning to see. He made decisions she did not always understand and occasionally made them without explaining, and then explained them afterward, which was better than the alternative she had lived through, but was also something she was still calibrating. She told him this directly, one evening, over the coffee that had become their Tuesday thing. You explained the Busan woman after the fact. You explained the journalist after the fact. I understand why, but I need you to understand that being explained to after is not the same as being included before. He had been quiet for a moment. You are right. I know I am. The almost smile. She had been watching it develop for 3 months. It was a small thing, barely visible, but she had learned that with him, the small things were where everything lived. Next time, he said, I will tell you before. And if you don't? Then you will tell me again, he said, and I will have learned something. She looked at him across the coffee table and thought about the 6 words she had typed at midnight in a locked room in a stranger's house, shaking and certain she had made one more mistake in a run of them. She thought about what the wrong number had brought her. Can I ask you something? She said. Yes. The first night, you came immediately. You didn't ask me anything. You just came. She looked at him. You said it was because of someone you knew. I never asked who. He set down his coffee. The window behind him showed the city in its late afternoon configuration. Ordinary, enormous, going about its business. My sister, he said. She worked for a family in the South. She was 19. He looked at his hands. She sent one message to a friend who did not check her phone until the morning. He paused. By morning, she had already decided the only way out was a way I cannot undo. The coffee shop was very quiet around them. I am sorry, Zara said. I know. He looked up. That is why I answer messages. She reached across the table and put her hand over his. He did not pull away. He turned his hand over so his palm was against hers and held it, steady, the way people held things they were not planning to let go of. 6 months after the wrong number, Zara Obi passed her nursing certification exam. She called her mother first. Her mother cried, which made Zara cry, which made Ada, who was in the room, cry out of solidarity even though she had been expecting this exact outcome for months. She called Soo-hyun last. He picked up on the second ring, which she had learned was his pattern when he had been waiting for a specific call. I passed, she said. A pause. Not the pause of someone processing, the pause of someone letting something land properly before responding to it. Of course you did, he said. That's all you have to say? No, he said, and she could hear in his voice the almost smile happening somewhere on the other side of the city. But the rest of it I will say in person. She laughed. She had not laughed like that in Seoul since the first week, before the locked gates and the missing Sundays and the 6 words typed at midnight in a room she could not leave. She had laughed then because the city was new, and she was new in it, and everything was still possible. She was laughing now because everything still was. Tuesday, she said. Tuesday, he said. She hung up and looked out the window of her apartment. Her name on the lease, her rosemary plant on the sill, at Seoul going about its business in the early evening light. And she thought about the wrong number that had been exactly right, about the 6 words that had found the one person in the city who would answer them, about what it meant that the thing she had been most afraid of had turned out to be the door. For every woman who sent a message and waited to see if anyone came, this one is for you. For every woman who came to a new city to build something and found, instead, a wall, this one is for you too. Like this video if you believe that wrong numbers can save lives. Subscribe if you stayed until the end. And drop a comment. Did you trust Soo-hyun from the first message? Or did he have to earn it? I will see you in the next story.